it's been really wonderful actually teaching online, and like I think it was in the chat, or you were saying, Sid, that initially it was quite frightening. It was quite a strange experience, and a lot of my friends are super baffled. How on earth can you teach art online when it's such a hands-on subject? But as Sid just mentioned, as I link with the World Views, we have our list of countries already. So I'm already planning what we're going to be doing each month. And so with plenty of time, I send the families a list of all the materials that they're going to need. And if necessary, with an Amazon link or just very simple arts equipment. But if there's anything specific, like Sid mentioned when we were doing Chinese brush painting, I know from experience how different it is to actually paint with a Chinese brush. So I asked all the students to go and buy one of those. And it's been really great because quite often in a classroom, when I was working in a normal school and I'm modelling how to roll a coil, say we were using clay, then there's 15 children all stood around me waiting to get to their table to, get their hands in the clay. But this way we can all be doing it at the same time. And I encourage the students to find a way to put their cameras down onto their desks so I can really see how they're using the material, and I can guide them if necessary. And it's been really, really fun.
I've had a great first year working with UK Virtual School. I just love the flexibility of it. My main passion is travel. I'm a bit of a wanderer, so I don't like really kind of committing to being in one place for a very long time. So pre-pandemic, I was teaching in South and Central America, and then I moved a bit closer to home and was teaching in Spain for a while. So for me, it was really important to find something that works from wherever I am in the world. And that's another reason why I love kind of just the diversity in the groups. We've got lots of children who speak different languages, and we come together to learn English. The kids are just generally very supportive and accepting of each other and their differences, which is something that I just find lovely. As Lucy said, we learn a lot from each other, and I think it's just a really important thing for the kids to learn.
I am teaching the younger children, so year 1 and 2, maths and English. I have worked predominantly in bricks and mortar schools, mainly with young children, so that's probably why I found myself in this role. But I also do have some online experience as well. I find it really fits in well. I've got 2 young children, and it really fits in well with around them being able to drop off to school and things like that. So the flexibility is great for me as well. It's really great. It's hard to imagine having teaching young children online, but it does really work. I think the fact it's less informal. And there's not, so if we're doing, for example, shapes, it's not a question of sitting down and identifying shapes on a worksheet. It's going around the house looking for different shapes, but running at the time in them, make it into a competitive sort of thing. And that sort of element really, really interests the children, and they're really keen. They don't really see it as learning, but it's a different approach, and they're really engaged by those sorts of things. I have to admit, I have recently got a second camera. I'm not the most technological, but I find it's really useful for things like handwriting, being able to show, especially for younger ones, because obviously it's really important to form letters correctly, and we do it informally with things like Play-Doh and in sand, but it is important that they can obviously write letters correctly. So being able to show them that nice and big with the second camera on a whiteboard, I think it's really good. So I'm not perfect with that, but I try. And it's really great to see how engaged they are. You're doing games. I use a lot of props as well in teaching. So if there's a very quite a quiet person, I'll get a puppet and try and get the child to speak to a puppet, and it's amazing. They are much more vocal speaking to a puppet rather than the screen or myself. So it's finding ways of catering to all the different ages, learners, learning styles and that sort of thing. And yeah, it's been amazing to sort of understand differences, like we've said before, across the world, different countries that the children are from, and they find it really interesting to find like that it's such a time in one person's day, and then it's such a time, especially the little ones. I've got a couple of students who are further ahead in the time zone in Thailand and those sorts of places, and then there's a couple of people who are further behind, and they find it really interesting that somebody might be having the breakfast while somebody's having lunchtime. So it's interesting in that respect as well. It's not just like English and maths. We have a lot of discussion about differences and bringing in those core values as well. So it's amazing.
Okay, so I teach English, and it's my favorite subject, obviously. I also do literature, which is something we started last year. And I know somebody asked about that. Mine is going to be a little bit more serious because I don't do music, sorry. I am going to talk a little bit about what we do.
She sings amazingly. I'm so sorry to interrupt. She's a great singer.
Yeah, she did. So Elizabeth did one of the social clubs at lunchtime. You did the music club. Oh, Hope came to that, right? Did you enjoy that, Hope? Because we only did it for a little while.
We did some singing together, remember, Hope?
I really liked it.
So did I. I loved it. It was my favorite time last year. Okay, so back to business. So a little bit about the IGCSE curriculum that we do. So Sid has explained that we have chosen the Pearson Edexcel IGCSE, and what we do in Year 9, Year 10 and Year 11 is we prepare the students for this specific exam. And I'm not too sure how it works for biology and science, Hannah, but for English it is quite specific because they have to study specific non-fiction texts and fiction texts, and some poetry, which is part of the fiction text. So we do go through this together. Luckily, so fortunately, the texts are all very interesting. The students are very engaged. They love them. And we work really, really well, I think. We have done some very, very good stuff this year. And for literature, we do something very, very similar, where we work on specific novels. And then they do get to discuss these novels in these exams, so answering specific questions.
Yep. So hello, I'm Hannah. I come from New Zealand, hence the horrendous pronunciation of the English language. I live in my van currently. I've been living in it for the last 2 years. So I teach secondary bio and chemistry at the moment, and I have in the past taught primary science as well. Sorry, there's a really loud seagull outside, which is not an unusual interruption for me. I'm often interrupted by the wildlife. So with bio and chemistry, we do IGCSE as well for biochemistry and physics. So Aaron is our physics and maths teacher. We try to get as much experimentation into our lessons as we can. So obviously being online, teaching science online is a little different to teaching it in a physical school, in that we don't have access to science labs. And so we can't have the joys of all catching things on fire all at once as a collective. So we try and incorporate more of everyday life into science lessons. So if I'm somewhere that sort of leans into a certain topic, at the moment I'm on the Isle of Arran, which is a very geologically significant place, and I'm teaching geology to the S7s on Wednesday. So hopefully I'll still be here and be able to just wander outside if the Scottish weather plays ball. I'm not holding out hope, but if we can see the mountains, we'll go look at the mountains and sort of use the world around us instead of using more science, like more laboratory-based science, and then talking about things theoretically that are outside. So it's a bit of a different approach to teaching science. There's also I try and get our students to do as many experiments as we can, especially in year 7. I try and find as many resources so that as part of home education, you guys can do experiments at home as well, because there's lots of things you can do just with stuff in your kitchen. And if there's anything dangerous, obviously I'll let you know, but there's a lot of joy of experimentation just from what you have in your house, which is really, really nice. Yeah, so I think that's basically it. With the 3 years for IGCSE for sciences, we offer biochemistry and physics. So that would be the equivalent of triple science. It's called. So if you're looking at GCSEs, that would be triple science. So you get 3 awards as opposed to double science, which is 2 awards. So there's if you do English, your English and your maths and your 3 sciences, you got your 5 GCSEs or IGCSE equivalents. That as sort of the foundation that you need to get into most A-level courses or colleges and that kind of thing later on down the line. Yeah, so that's basically sciences, I think. If you've got any questions about science, feel free to ask.
So, talking about myself, my favorite thing, right? I do music. My musical story is quite interesting because I started doing music to make friends. Like, originally I'm from Ukraine. I came to Greece like in 2006. And in order to make friends, I just heard about a band. There's like a local band who was about to play a few gigs, and they're like, "Do you know how to play guitar?" I'm like, "Yeah." And I had no idea. Just got a guitar from a neighbor, learned a few chords from a book, and went to the rehearsal. Did well. So I'm just like, all right, this is working out. This is good. Then I just started, learning by myself and taking lessons from better musicians than me. Then went to to a college and went to UK, to London, lived there for 6 years. Anyway, my career is like evolving better. When I started teaching, I understood that it's the best way to learn something. So that's why on our lessons, when I have lessons with kids, I'm trying to make them to teach me something back, or at least explain it back to me, because then they literally observe from a different perspective that the subject or like technical things that we work on. So my room, I mainly play string instruments, right? We're talking about bass, we're talking about all kinds of guitars, I play percussions, I play piano, I sing as well, and this is like the collection as I showed before. We're starting from basses, electric guitars. What I tell to my wife that this instrument is just different tools, but it's all a lie. I just love the guitars, right? I could do with one, but no. This is what I need, I promise. I'm not an addict. Anyway, this is a good addiction to have. And I have some pedals so we can explore like different effects of the instruments and guitars and all that. I record people, I produce people, I mix music, so that's why I mentioned that we can start recording and creating music from the scratch, like starting with few chords, writing lyrics, develop an idea that you may work with Elizabeth, for example, on her like English lessons. Let's say you're working on a book, and we can take like the core, the main ideas from that book, and just create a little story, with rhyming, and put that on music, and just produce that, and you have a track. Here you go, CDs, albums. You travel the world, you got signed, you drink coffee with Madonna, if you know who she is. Anyway, so that's my piano. Those are some books. That's actually the book that we're using with UKVS at the moment, Guitar Basics. Great books with the backing tracks that I mentioned. This is how I take selfies. That's aircon, you can't survive in Greece otherwise. That's a Greek instrument. That's a Turkish version of that, and this is Robert Plant. If you know Led Zeppelin, you understand that. Anyway, this is me, so I will stop now because it's getting too much, I think. So let me play a few chords.